motto is the tough strength that has never been fully measured, never unleashed. The resilience of youthfulness, which
welcome back to the Social Work Race, guys. You have returned. You know what? We are keeping the channel alive. There's a lot been happening, and we're expanding. I use the term "we," like it's just me. So if you ever hear me use the term "we," then suspect it's just me. But I think maybe I'm trying to. It's a subconscious kind of humility move. You know what I mean? Actually, we're expanding. I'm expanding the service to help more social workers, more students, mostly students, and those who are newly qualified, those who are doing their ASYE. That's what it's about. So if you go over to my Patreon channel, or if you go to my TikTok channel, or Instagram page, you will have access to everything I have if you click the link in the bio. And as you know, we always have challenging discussions about what it is to be on the front line. And I've had a few discussions on Instagram Live. If you're missing those, we mostly do them at 8 p.m. Once or twice a week. We had quite a few sessions last week. So what I'll do is I'll put up the audio very soon. It's been interesting and it's been fun. And it's also a lot of work to have discussions, because sometimes you don't know who you're going to interview. I've got one on tomorrow, and I've met the person very briefly over the phone, but you don't know how it's going to go. So it's always a challenge and a risk to just throw someone up on social media like that and just hit the live button and hopefully it turns out okay. So it's an interesting journey. Excuse me, I've been sick for a little while and I have been recovering for the last few days. I'm still alive, so I'm blessed. So that's why podcasting hasn't happened at the rate I wanted to, but we're back on it. But this is a topic that I've struggled with for a long time. Another one as to whether I am brave enough to do it, because I guess having challenging conversations around topics that people may find themselves sensitive about, you tend to stay away from it, but the issue is there. And what concerns me a lot is the rate that people get cancelled, because you're asking questions. It's not that anyone's racist or phobic, although the term is incorrect. It's sometimes conversations do need to be had. And if we struggle to have conversations in a free, open society, then we have to question what freedom of speech is and what we're doing with it. So there's a very concerning trend at the moment as to what's happening with the ability to be in, I live in the UK, or if it be in America or Europe, to live in a society where we pride ourselves on fighting for other nations for the same freedoms we have. And in this country, we shut people down if we don't agree. So we have to look at that. Whatever your perspective is, we should be able to talk about things. And I mean everything. So an example of me as a black man, let's talk about it. I don't mind having a racist on my show. As long as we can have a conversation, we don't have to agree. What we won't support is violence. Do you know what I mean? And marginalization and discrimination. We won't tolerate that. We will fight for that. But I will also fight for the right for those who don't agree with me to have the same rights as I do to speak. We should not be shutting down conversations. We should be having them and having them forever. Because humans will never get along fully. But we can win more people into a mindset that allows them to rationalize and probably see the light if we keep the conversation channels open. But I fear that in the UK we're turning a really concerning corner when it comes to freedom of speech and understanding. So that's something to be addressed. But that's a side issue, and that's kind of a prelude, excuse me, to this topic. And today's topic is one that I'm still working out, to be fair. I'm working it out because I don't have all the answers, and scientists and studies and the doctors and everyone out there and sociologists do not have all the answers on it. So, but I'm bringing it to light because it's something that's been on my mind since 2014, primarily. And it's the question of, and I'll tell you how it came to light as well. Why are the crime statistics or certain crime statistics so high for mixed race youth? There you go. And as we know, in the criminal justice system, boys are far more, they're probably like 3 times more the rate of crime than girls, which is a lot. If not, it's a bit more actually. Should double check my stats on that, but it's a lot more than girls. So it's primarily aimed at boys, yeah. So why are the crime statistics or certain crimes so high for mixed race boys? This is interesting. And I want you to understand that when I have this conversation, we're looking at how we can get just a glimpse as to how we can represent them in our assessments. I did say to you before, I'm going to stop saying so let's try not to do that, right? We're going to look at how we can assess this, how we can make sense of it, and to be more informed about our approach to working with mixed race. And whatever mixed race means, actually in the UK, it's primarily white mothers and West Indian fathers. Yes, we're changing a lot in the UK, as in America. And it's a very, the growth in this group is significant, growing at a very fast rate as people have more freedom to choose their partners. It was about 70 years ago that, in some countries, you just couldn't be dating across and I use the term race. We couldn't date across the races, but, it's so acceptable now, But we're going to get into it. I remember growing up and the grandparents' age, and my grandparents' ages now, if they were alive, would be about 98, 99, thereabouts, So they would say, it messes up their heads because they don't know who they are. And I've heard that from both white and black people from that age group, And you look at that, you think, well, what are they saying? Maybe there's something true, maybe there isn't. Who knows? But it's to be explored, and we might get into it a little bit. But I remember working in a youth offending service, and when I got there, this is how we'll open the topic. There was a colleague of mine, a good friend of mine now, who it's in 2014, and he was asked to conduct a little bit of research into why in the area, the locality that we were working in, why mixed race boys were committing so much more shoplifting. Now, I don't have statistics for that, but it was an issue in that area where why are mixed race boys committing certain offences so much so? And he struggled with that research, but that's what his job was, I did say again, so I owe everyone 50p. I owe all my listeners 50p every time I do it. So he and I would discuss this. What I will do is I will read through some material that I've gathered, because the fact is that there is little research done on this. You'll find lots for black boys, whatever black means. And I always use that. I always suffix that with whatever black means, There is little research when it comes to the mixed race community. So let me read some of this for you from Gov.uk. Here we go. Of those sentenced at court, the most common sentence type for possession of weapons offences for all ethnic groups except offenders of mixed ethnicity was immediate custody. Yeah. In 2018, black defendants had the highest custody rate, that's 42%, while the custody rate for all other ethnic groups varied between 31 and 37%. Since 2014, mixed ethnicity offenders consistently had the highest percentage of offenders receiving a sentencing outcome of a community sentence. That's 37% in 2018. Since 2016, Asian offenders had the longest average custody sentence length for possession of weapons offences. We could go into that another day. Yeah. In 2018, the Asian offenders for possession of weapons offences was the highest for Asian offenders at 17.1 months, and the lowest for Chinese or other offenders. And you have to ask the question, like, what is that? Is that racism and stuff like that from the judicial system, or is that maybe it's the nature of their offences that might allude to that? We don't know, but let's go deeper. Here we go. It says, and I've read from a publication, a Parliament document, and it says patterns of offending which are commonly attributed to black groups are found among young people from other ethnicities. In other words, the Deputy Assistant Commissioner Cressida Dick, remember her, of the Met, she says much of what you will say about young black people in the criminal justice system could also be applied to other young people from a variety of different communities. Now, you have to understand that she's quite in touch with statistics, and it sounds fair what she's saying now. She goes, but probably not all of it. Fair enough. Like black groups, for example, people of mixed ethnic origin are more likely than white people to be convicted of drugs offences and robbery, probably because they have less fathers around and are more vulnerable. And this is an interesting point, guys. Listen. Easy pickings. I've done this before, but on my TikTok page, I've spoken about absent fathers is a major thing, but we'll come to that. Statistics go further. Households headed by someone with mixed ethnicity were the least likely out of all ethnic groups to be made up of married couples or civil partners, but most likely to be made up of a cohabiting couple. So there is instability at the very core of mixed ethnicity households. Can this be said? Is someone going to shout and say, how dare you call out a particular group? We have to. I know the society does not mind calling out blacks, but let's do it. It doesn't, and I won't even mention the other ethnicities that really don't like being called out. Let's go further. Asian young people are twice as likely to be stopped by the police as white people. Okay. Research by the Youth Justice Board has found, and I used to work for them, have found young people of mixed parentage experience higher rates of prosecution and conviction and are less likely to receive a pre-court disposal than black. Pre-court disposal meaning let's deal with this without going through the court system. And that can happen with young people, so they can be dealt with out of court with the police. So they're less likely to receive a pre-court disposal, meaning that they'll have to go to court, which means that they'll probably get a significant sentence, than black, Asian, or white males. We know that young black people and young people of mixed ethnicity, when sentenced, are more likely. Let me start that again. We know that young black people and young people of mixed ethnicity, when sentenced, are more likely to receive more punitive sentences than young white people. Well, let me be clear, and I've said it before, I've seen it with my own eyes regularly. Whereas black young offenders accounted for 6% of total offences, they received 11.6% of the total custodial sentences. So, skin colour, And sentencing is a thing. It's no secret. And it looks like mixed ethnicity young people are in the same bucket when it comes to sentencing. It's very important to dig deeper into, sorry, I'm chomping on popcorn stuck in my teeth. It's more important to look deeper into this. You can't just look at these stats and say, well, there you go. You've got to go deeper into what's behind it. It might reveal something, because again, the term black or mixed could mean a lot of things. Here's where are we? Yep. And I've got this. I have tongue tied. The NCBI website that has a multitude of articles. Okay. If you want to know the article, let me know. In fact, let me go to it. I'll give you the name of it actually. It's called "Are Multiracial Adolescents at Greater Risk? Comparisons of rates, patterns, correlates of substance use, violence between monoracial and multiracial adolescents." What it means is, are multiracial, mixed race youth, let's analyze and correlate as best we can their use of illegal substances and violence as compared to those who grew up in single ethnicity homes. Hope that makes sense. There's a lot of words there, right? Let me read this to you. Research on multiracial children. Before I go into it, this is deep. Why? This is deep because this group have not really been talked about. And we're about to do it. And if you are a social worker or a frontline worker, I want you to critically analyze what I'm saying, challenge me, but also look at this freely to know that black is not just black, white is not just white, and mixed is not just mixed. And whatever they all mean, what's behind them? It's only fair that we talk about everybody so that we can understand everybody, because we live in a diverse society. Do you know what I mean? Let's go. Research on multiracial children and adolescents is relatively scarce. Okay, there are references in there. Well, I'll just bypass those. Many of the limited number of studies portray a fairly pessimistic picture of adjustment outcomes for multiracial children and adolescents. For example, studies report a higher incidence of academic problems. Oh man, right there. And if you have problems in school, then delinquency is probably around the corner. Overrepresentation in mental health treatment, higher rates of victimization than any other ethnic groups, low self-esteem, confused racial ethnic identity, and other psychological and behavioral problems, higher rates of health problems, and a sense of inauthenticity and shame with regard to identity. At the same time, other studies have shown that multiracial children and adolescents are not significantly different from monoracial children in various adjustment outcomes. For example, personality, identity, formation, self-concept, reference group, orientation, and internalizing problems, the quality of the parent and adolescent relationship, and the majority of school behavior and psychological dimensions. Thus, the extant literature presents inconsistent findings and can lead to different conclusions. Fair enough. I love it. I love a critical look. So it means that some studies show that there's problems and some studies show that there are no problems. That's it in a nutshell. However, we look further into the group because we can look at the studies that do show some issues. Because at the end of the day, we have crime statistics. Okay? So we have to look at it on the side of what do we think is going wrong. In contrast to other studies In contrast to other studies, Cooney and Redina, 2000, used a nationally representative sample to examine the relationship between adjustment problems and the quality of relationship between parents and adolescents. They compared the results of multiracial youths to those of European American youths and to a minority youth group that aggregated various monoracial minority youth groups. I don't want to lose you in the big words, okay? This is just the way that articles are written, but I'm just concerned that listening to me put these words out might make you switch off. Please don't. It's going to get deep. They found differences between multiracial and monoracial youths on fewer than half of the school behavioral and psychological dimensions, and comparable relationship quality across groups, except that multiracial boys and their fathers were found to be less emotionally close and communicative. Right there. Again, men, fathers tend not to be involved in their children's lives if they are in multiracial relationships. This is a problem. Let's go deeper. Problem behavior. We examined 2 areas of problem behaviors: substance use and violent behavior. The survey included questions on initiation and frequency of these behaviors. What we can't do is, and just before I summarize on these, we have to note that something sticks out, and there isn't much literature on this, okay? Something sticks out, and that is fathers are not around. And I think, well, actually, what if they were? What if they had a figure of authority, of a male figure, which is what statistically we know boys do better when they have that male figure. That, you know, I know that it's probably uncommon or unfavorable for some people to hear about male energy and feminine energy and so forth. But statistically, it's a thing. We have to look at it. I said again, I owe you £1.50, guys. I'm concerned that, you know, love is not enough to bring a child through into this world safely. There's a whole spectrum that makes up their life, in their system, the people that they're around, the influences, what they put in their minds, who they hang around, their health, their education, their identity, and the relationships they have. All of this is a spectrum, and it's not all love. So we can't just say as long as you have a loving parent. It doesn't often work, and statistically it's just not enough. We need fathers in the picture, and this group are noted statistically to have less of their fathers around. Now, there's a particular set of offences that follow mixed race boys, not just in America but here as well. I've seen this on government statistics. They tend to pound for pound exceed in the areas of substance misuse and violent behaviour. Knife crime as well. Robberies. Yeah. This is a very small group, but they are overrepresenting, and we want to understand why. This is for anyone who has a mixed race child, but it's typically for white mothers. And I'm going to go into it because I've had a lot of conversations with both white and black parents from various age groups, ranging from, again, my grandparents' age, which would be in their 90s, nearly hundreds, or people who are 10 years younger than myself, like in their 30s, right? What does this mean? This is what I want to speculate and share with you, okay? And again, I'm trying to be really sensitive. Number one, we cannot escape the fact that fathers are just important. and they balance the books on emotions. We don't only see some of these problems with mixed race children. It's just that they seem to be missing out on their fathers more than everybody else in our society. And so they are going to present some behavioral challenges for their parents. I've had from both white and black, point number 2, white and black parents of mixed race children say to me, are you £2? £2.50. Many of them have said, well, I'm growing a black child and I'm a white woman. Can that work? Now, some of you might argue and say, well, you shouldn't be, this is the root of the problem. No, actually, it's not. But it is a problem. And I'm telling you what I've been told. I'm not making this up, and I guarantee that. Some white mothers are feeling, I cannot cater for my child because I don't think I can help him with his identity, which they feel is the core of the problem. It may well be. But what we can say is that there are white parents out there who are saying and identifying their child as black. If you want to know more about that, go on my TikTok page. I've got a post on it, and I'm allowing parents to freely comment. It's gotten a lot of traction. They do not necessarily feel that they're doing the full job because their fathers are not there. Not just because their fathers are not there, but the children don't necessarily identify as mixed or white. They actually often identify as black, even though they are of mixed heritage, which is interesting because you can also say that's how the criminal justice treats them, because they're receiving sentences also, same at the rates, similar rates as the black counterparts. And this is the third point I want to make, and this is where it gets challenging for me. I wanted us to be aware of things that are not said and to have conversations around things that are not said. And as much as we are in a really kind of a free age to speak our minds and to rights, we can talk about transgenderism, the multiple genders. Let's have that conversation. No, so much so we can even say, well, let's have an identity session before we start our meetings. Hasn't happened to me yet. But we would struggle to talk about this in assessments. And I don't think we're ready to talk about this. We might say, well, look, dad's not around. But I wonder how many of us are ready to address this. And it needs more research before you do. It's not something you just want to throw together. I've done a bit of research on this topic. But how to articulate the issue of if you have a mixed race child, what it means for them in your assessment. What does it mean for them to be mixed, and how do they identify? And how the mother feels that they are managing their child in this. This is a very challenging topic. So be careful how you represent this, but also be aware that it's a thing. And I hope this helped, because I didn't really come to answer the question. I came to address the question. I came to address some statistics that are very real. They need further work. And I hope that in some way we can help parents who are struggling with children with the behaviors of their children who are of mixed heritage. And really at first just have a conversation around it so that we can understand it more. And it's something I probably will do on a live session with some parents. If you want that, let me know. You can message me at thesocialworkrace@gmail.com, or you can visit my Patreon page. Please do, especially if you're a student or a newly qualified or doing your ASYE, and if you want guidance for your studies, hit me up on my Patreon page, and it will be helpful because you're supporting the cause as well. Take care of yourselves.